Oh my.
Please introduce yourself.
Hello.
I'm Mike Quesadilla.
Hello, I'm Erica.
Hey, I'm Kikoa Honolokomoko.
Hello, I'm Missy
I tell a bad
Schistosomiasis is a parasitic disease caused by the infection of a worm known as schistosoma. It currently affects 238 million people, or roughly 3% of Earth's population. Of that, 85% live in Africa and 11% will die of complications. In 1852, Theodore Maximilian Bilhars discovered the worm while examining human cadavers. Since then, massive advances in treatment have been made, yet even so, it affects millions of lives, as we will see with our victim, Stephen Hawk.
I didn't think it could happen to me. It was like a shock, a sudden realization. Who would have thought that my beloved pet could have brought me such pain and suffering?
Stephen's pet snail, Gary, was imported from East Africa, a place where most snails are infected with Schistosoma mansoni. He was usually extremely careful, being sure to wear proper protection when caring for his pet and any infected water the pet was in.
People, let me tell you about my best friend. He's a warm-hearted person who loved me till the end. People, let me tell you about my best friend. He's a one-boy cuddly toy, my up, my down, my pride and joy. People, let me tell you about him. He's so much fun. Whether we're talking man to man or whether we're talking sun to sun, 'cause he's my best friend. Yeah, he's my best.
Yet one day, when Stephen wasn't wearing his gloves, he noticed a small emergency with his snail, and the worst possible thing happened.
Oh no! My snail Gary is flipped over! Let me flip him back! Ah! The water is infected! I should dry off my hands to prevent infection! Ah! The towel is wet! No!
Dr. Quesadilla, where did you get your doctor's license from?
Well, for starters, I graduated from Chief Cannon Meadows Koi School, or CKMS for short. My work in the deadly snail disease is quite extensive.
It also says here that you were head of your class and that you spent most of the years out of college focusing on the dangers of snail disease and trying to inform people of its deadly side effects and dangers.
Yes, indeed, I do not regret a single day spent working on curing the viral infection.
And what exactly are some of the symptoms?
White blood cell count, enlargement in liver and spleen, fever, coughing, sneezing, hypertension, sores, diarrhea, and possibly anaphylactic shock.
Stephen had no clue what was going on inside his body. The schistosoma would enter his body by melting the upper layer of his skin and entering through a capillary. At which point it would find its way to the lungs to develop further. After developing for up to 10 days in the lungs, it would find its way down to the liver, at which point it would begin to feed off of the liver and develop even further. After up to 2 weeks in the liver, it would become fully developed and move down to the blood vessels around the colon. Once in the blood vessels around the colon, it will start to lay eggs, up to 1 every 30 seconds, for years and years. The immune system will eventually become overwhelmed with the number of eggs, sending in more and more units to stop it. However, nothing will be able to slow down the rate of egg laying by the schistosoma.
So, Dr. Quesadilla, how are you going to help the patient?
That drug prazoquintal.
That's right. Prazoquintal is an anthelmintic drug that's effective against many types of flatworms. Anthelmintic meaning it works against worms. Specifically, it works against schistosoma. However, it is effective in treating other types of flatworms, such as Enchinococcus and worms of the Taenia species, both of which produce similar effects to the schistosoma worm with schistosomiasis. Developed in the 1970s by Bayer AG and Merck KGaA, to treat against flatworms, it is now considered one of the models of essential medicines by the World Health Organization.
We need to start treatment as soon as possible, just as the first worsening of this disease.
Oh, the pain! Ah! Cut.
Oh, Stephen, now that we have given you the drug needed to stop the parasite, your body should begin healing itself in the next 6 to 8 weeks. However, once the time is over, I advise another 2 weeks on the drug, just for safety.
That's wonderful. But how does it work, doctor?
That's a great question. The drug is quite simple. The drug blocks the parasite from digesting, causing it to die and stop the spreading of the disease.
Wow, this drug is amazing. Almost all my symptoms have been completely reduced. The schistosomiasis that once haunted my life and marriage is now finally disappearing. Now I can spend more time and money more carefully with my family instead of on my disease.
He's right. The snail disease honestly ripped a hole in our family dynamic. But now that my husband's cured, we have more time to mend our relationship.
I hope that families everywhere can find the cure for schistosomiasis.
Now, just because our friend Stephen here was cured of schistosomiasis doesn't mean everyone is. In fact, most people who are infected with it will never be cured in their lives. Unfortunately, this is not due to issues with medication, but instead an inability of resources. The medication works almost 100% of the time. However, many people are unable to attain it due to their own economic or national or personal situations. However, the best ways to avoid getting infected with schistosomiasis are simply preventative. If exposed to water that is stagnant or polluted, then be sure to take a good shower and dry off any areas that may have been in contact with water. If you are drinking water that may be contaminated, be sure to boil it to at least 212 degrees before drinking. And most importantly, be aware that the worm may be anywhere, lest you end up like our dear fellow Stephen.